What's up guys, Dutogira here, and today we're going to be discussing some of the new cards that are being released in the Grand Tournament, everything that has well been released since Wilfred Fizzlebang. And there's some pretty cool cards. We're going to start from the very bottom. We didn't get just kind of a shotgun release this time of a bunch of cards with a legendary, so we're going to have to do a bit of scrolling, but that's not a problem, right? So let's go ahead and start out. It's way down here. That was the last time a card was released. We got Tournament Medic. Tournament Medic is a 4-mana 1/8 with Inspire, restore 2 health to your hero. This card is basically irrelevant in every single class. If you're running him in a priest deck, I mean, he's not trading for other 4-drops. He's not even really trading for other 2-drops. He's kind of a soft taunt like Deathlord because he's a strong Outlast mechanic. But that's not a winning strategy to just heal for a ton, because if your opponent plays, you know, like a 3-drop and then a Shredder, he's got 7 damage per turn, and you playing Tournament Medic only heals you for 4. And that's starting from turn 4. And this guy's not going to clear any minions. So, I mean, Tournament Medic just seems irrelevant. Yeah, there's the fact that you could use him with Inner Fire, but Inner Fire decks are almost entirely non-competitive. Colento made a miracle, or I don't think Colento even made it. I think one person in chat linked him a deck that he tried and refined. That was kind of a miracle Divine Spirit Priest. But Tournament Medic I don't think would even fit in that deck. It's a bad card without something like Inner Fire, and if you need a support card to make a card good, it's not constructed playable. In Arena, this card also doesn't work because its stats are just bad. So there's that one. Actually, last interesting note is that it is still better than our buddy Justicar Trueheart and Warlock, because it is a 4-mana creature that now makes your hero power basically not deal damage to you instead of a 6-mana creature, and honestly, the, lessened loss of tempo would make this better in Warlock than Justicar Trueheart. So yeah, there's a bit of comedic value for you. Go away, NVIDIA. Alright. Next up, we got the Colosseum Manager. He's a 3-mana 2/5 with Inspire. Return this minion to your hand. I guess he might be decent in Arena. Might be. Just because, you know, he's pretty good stats for a 3-drop. But, I mean, even in Constructed, this guy is like a Druid of the Flame in Hawk form. And Druids don't play that card. It is, stat-wise, one of the best 3-drops in existence, but it's not good enough to compete with the 2/4s that have text, like Flame Waker and Imp Gang Boss, etc. And this guy's text is a straight-up drawback. So, Constructed playable? No. Arena playable? Probably, because you just want hero power. You'll keep curving out into that, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minion drop. But Constructed, that's just, he's terrible. You lose too much tempo off of him, and the stats are not so amazing that they make him worth playing. Interestingly, since my last review, we might as well touch on the card corrections. Sacred Warrior is now Holy Champion, so pretend I said that all of last time. I'll also go ahead and touch on it. I finally did kind of decide, after watching a couple of other people review this card, I agree with the statement that in more of an aggro meta, this Holy Champion is not amazing. In more of a control meta, Holy Champion's pretty good, just because it can potentially trade with 5-drops, 6-drops, etc. But on the other hand, it's not crazy strong. Like, it's not arguably better than a Shredder when you play it. Therefore, in a faster meta, you might as well just play Shredder. King's Defender got changed, so its battle cry is now, if you have a minion with taunt, gain +1 durability. Basically, it's even worse than it was before, and we kind of determined that even when its text was battle cry, gain +1 durability for each minion with taunt, it was still irrelevant. Fiery War Axe just kind of outclassed it. Maybe in the right deck it could have worked with that old text, but now it just is straight up worse than War Axe. So, kind of sucks, but oh well. Then we got a couple of new cards. We got the Flame Juggler. He's a 2-mana 2/3 with the battle cry of deal 1 damage to a random enemy. This card's honestly probably just going to be irrelevant and constructed, and In Arena, he's decent enough. 2-3 for stats are not bad. And the Battle Cry isn't too big of a drawback, so I mean, at a common slot, not bad in Arena. I know a lot of people were championing Flame Juggler having in the Battle Cry of deal 1 damage to a random enemy minion instead of a random enemy, because the chance that he goes face means that, you know, there's a chance you play him and he's just basically a 2-3 that pings your opponent's face. I actually strongly disagree with this kind of review of the card, because if Flame Juggler had the text deal 1 damage to a random enemy minion, not only does he become a strong face hunter counter, but he becomes stronger than almost every single other 2-drop in the game and trivializes most 1-drops. For example, the Heart of Tempo Mage is Mana Worm, correct? Someone plays a turn 1 Mana Worm. If you're going first, and your opponent plays a turn 1 Mana Worm, then you can turn 2 play Flame Juggler, bam, that Mana Worm's pinged down to 2 health, and Flame Juggler can trade with it. If the Mana Worm survives because, like, you know, the Mage Frost bolts or something, well, that 2 health is relevant for certain classes. I think for Paladin, that brings it into Conk range. For Priest, that brings it into Holy Nova range. And I guess for Warlock, if you were to, like, buff up an egg or something, that could now deal with it, but still. That's just one example with Mana Worm. There's also, like, Shielded Minibot, one of the best 2-drops in the game, period. Flame Juggler straight up destroys Shielded Minibot, because your opponent plays a Shielded Minibot. If you went first, then I guess you're playing a turn 3 Flame Juggler, unless you coin the Shielded Minibot, in which case PogChamp. Which isn't amazing, but still, it pings off the Divine Shield of that Minibot, and now you've got a 2-3 to your opponent's 2-2. And, if you went second, then he played it turn 2 and you coined the Flame Juggler, and you got it on curve. Or no, you wouldn't have had to coin it. So that's even more ridiculous. But my point is that this Flame Juggler deals with the most powerful 2-drops in the game, the only exceptions being Nerubian Egg and, I guess, Flame Imp and Haunted Creeper. Those are the only 3 cards that Flame Juggler wouldn't straight up outclass if he were played in response to any 1 or 2-drop. I suppose there's also Millhouse, but nobody plays him in Constructed. And Ancient Watcher? But again, nobody plays him in Constructed. And Ancient Watcher can't attack. I guess Handlock plays him in Constructed, but he can't attack. So, there you go. Flame Juggler would just become one of the most powerhouse 2-drops in the game if you were to only ping minions and not face. So I'm kind of glad that that does have that nerf, but on the other hand, it makes it almost unplayable and Constructed. So, bit of give and take, but, oh well. Next up we got Clockwork Knight. He's a 5-mana 5/5 mech with the battle cry, give a friendly mech +1/+1. Noteworthy is the fact that this will allow Shredder to trade into most 5-drops, like Lotheb, Belcher, etc. So that's really strong. Noteworthy is that it also has the target 5-drop stats like a Lotheb does of being a 5-mana 5/5. Is this enough to bring back something like Mech Mage, say? I don't know, honestly. In my experience, Mech Mage wasn't big on 5-drops. They played, I think, Lotheb, and that was about it. I don't even think Mech Mage bothered with Belchers. So, is Clockwork Knight just kind of too slow for a Mech Mage? Maybe. But on the other hand, the fact that it is both decent stats for its mana cost and gets that sweet spot for Shredder, he could bring Mech Mage back, which is kind of cool. So yeah, I like Clockwork Knight. I like the idea of having just a ton of different decks in the meta, so you have no real clue what the meta is. It makes people build these really diverse decks that either focus on winning by their own strategy and they just don't care what deck they're against, they'll win the same way no matter what. Or you build a deck that is just kind of this control deck that has tech cards against almost everything. But when the control deck works, it's a control deck. Your opponent just doesn't play Hearthstone. He plays Let's Play a minion and watch it die. So, yeah. I like Clockwork Knight. Next up is Savage Combatant, a 4-mana 5/4 beast The beast is noteworthy, and the fact that it's a 4-drop is noteworthy, because if you play a beast druid, Druid of the Fang can trigger off of this guy, and it's perfectly on curve. You get a 4-mana 5/4 into a 5-mana 7/7. So that's pretty cool. I don't think vanilla that would make him playable in Druid, because you've already got Lost Tallstrider. But he also has Inspire. Give your hero +2 attack this turn. This basically means that as long as he's on the field, your hero power is now gain 3 attack and 1 armor. That's not bad. But on the other hand, Druid is one of those classes that only hero powers when they don't have anything better to do with their mana. Almost anything at all in Druid is better than using hero power. It doesn't get you that much of a tempo lead, because unlike with something like a mage where you can use your hero power to trade favorably, Druid still takes the face damage for that. They take 1 less face damage than they would have from taking a hit from a minion, but they still, for the most part, take all the damage they would have anyway. So it's not that great of a tempo recovery tool, and therefore it's not all that used. Admittedly, with Savage Combatant out, you could clear away just about any 2-drop, I suppose, and it would let you pop Shredders. But again, in Constructed, the stats of a 3-drop that make it playable are having 4 health or more. A lot of the good ones are 2/4s, 3/4s in the case of Dark Cultist, Spider Tank, I guess a 2/8 in the case of Death Lord, but for the most part, 3-drops don't have 3 health these days, they have 4. And so that hero power isn't even dealing with a minion that costs 1 less than Savage Combatant does, and I think that just makes this card largely irrelevant unless you're trying to make him fit into a Beast Druid. And I have no clue what that deck would look like, so I cannot review Savage Combatant in a Beast Druid. Maybe it'll happen. I'm not going to try to make it work. But who knows? Maybe we'll see it. Maybe Savage Combatant's better than I'm giving him credit for, and I'm more than willing to be wrong on that. But assuming Beast Druid doesn't work, he's irrelevant. And I'm willing to say that with confidence. Last but not least, we got our legendaries. We've got Eydis Darkbane. Darkbane, not Darkbang. Eydis Darkbane. Yeah. She's a 3-mana 3/4 legendary. With the text, whenever you target this minion with a spell, deal 3 damage to a random enemy. So there are 2 noteworthy things among this text, and this text is also seen on the next legendary. They were released as a pair. I don't know if that means you will get them as a pair, I highly doubt it. But, first of all, whoever played the minion has to target them. That means that as a 3-mana 3/4, that's good stats for a 3-drop. The text on Eydis is even more ridiculous, of basically frostbolting every time you cast a spell that targets it. Now you have to be the one to do this, your opponent doesn't. That means that this is most useful in classes that can target their minions with spells. So what classes do that? Well, let's see. This would be really useful in Tempo Mage, because you have spare parts. Something like Clockwork Gnome would become more played. We might even see a resurgence of this card in like a Mech Mage that runs Clockwork Gnome alongside Tinkertown Technician and what's it called? Mechanical Yeti. And what you could do is just stack up spare parts and play Eydis in one turn along with 4 or 5 spare parts and fling 12 damage around. That's ridiculous. So you got a Mech Mage Reviver right here. That's really good because of spare part synergy. Most Warlock classes don't favor targeting their minions with spells, especially if they're not demons, which Eydis is not. Let's see. Paladin can do it, but the most frequently used Paladin spells to target minions is one specifically, which is Blessing of Kings. Noteworthy with Blessing of Kings is that it takes both Eydis and Fjola, who are both 3/4s, up into Big Game Hunter range. So that's actually kind of a balancing stat that I think is really cool, because if you play a turn 3 Eydis or a turn 3 Fjola and a turn 4 Blessing, in the case of either of them, that's pretty ridiculous. But now that can be curbed by Big Game Hunter, or Big Fun Hunter, whichever you want to call it. But honestly, I'm just glad Aggro Paladin's not getting a buff from either of these two. It doesn't need it. I guess if you were to use something like Blessing of Might, that would still work. But, well, I guess you'd have to start running Blessing of Might and these two in Aggrodin. There's also Priest, obviously. I'm not going to forget my own class. You've got Power Word Shield, you've got Velen's Chosen, and you've got Light of the Naru. And seeing these as Powerhouse 3-drops in Priest, Light of the Naru could very easily see a Resurgence in Constructed. It's largely been kind of elbowed out. Chinese/Japanese Priest has been proving itself lately to be far stronger than the typical American Control Priest. Most regular Control Priest players, such as Zeta-Lot... Actually, no, not Zeta-Lot. Zeta-Lot's the one last bastion of American Control Priest. But, like Kolento... Kolento's been doing a lot of combo priests, or sticking with the European theft priest. Amaz has been just kind of fiddling around with different priest builds. He plays American priest sometimes. And I should clarify, American priest is the one that runs the Akanai Circle combo for board clear, runs a double Pyromancer, doesn't run Light Bomb really, and occasionally runs Vol'jin, but yeah. Whereas Japanese/Chinese priest runs Deathlord and Light Bomb instead of the Akanai Circle combo, because it's a little more consistent. It also runs Shredders over Blade Masters. So, that's the major difference. But, yeah, having a minion like either Eydis or Fjola to hit with something like Light of the Naru, Power Word Shield, Velen's Chosen, etc., that's really strong. I know Druid has a couple of buff spells, but it's not super fond of those. I mean, I guess if you want to, like, Mark of the Wild, either of these two, that's not bad. Fjola, who has whenever you target this minion with a spell, gain Divine Shield, would basically become a build-your-own Sunwalker with Mark of the Wild. And that only costs 5 mana. The excuse for being able to play that too, instead of just playing Sunwalker, is 1, better tempo, 2, Mark of the Wild does have synergy with Black Knight, because you can use it on opponent minions for a targeted kill. So, running a 1-of like that is not that bad. I guess you could Wrath one of these two. And because the text is whenever you target this minion with a spell, not successfully cast a spell, but target the minion with a spell, something like Counterspell won't stop either of these two from going off for the Mage Secret. Similarly, if you were to, like, Wrath Fjola for 1, the Divine Shield should pop up before Wrath deals 1 damage. Which you could take to mean, you know, free draw 1 card for 2 mana, kind of like the Warlock hero power. But honestly, it'd probably be a bit stronger if that happened afterward in the case of Wrathing your own Fjola. As it stands, I don't think that's worth it at all. I mean, if your opponent's board is empty and you have Fjola out, you don't really need to be Wrathing. Right? You don't need to be cycling into answers because you don't need answers to anything yet. More likely than not. But, yeah, I think that's about it. Rogues don't target their minions with things like Tinker Oil, thank goodness. Backstabbing either of these two. Backstab would be eaten by the Divine Shield. Cold Blood, I don't think that aggressive of a rogue is really going to be made possible by these two, but we'll see. So I think the major beneficiaries of these two are going to be Priest, because you've got anywhere from 4 to 6 targets for this, for either of these two, or both of these two. Honestly, in Priest, I don't see why you shouldn't run both. Because they're basically better in Priest than even Dark Cultist is. Like, I would probably run these and try to revive American Control Priest the second they're out. These seem ridiculously good in Priest. You know, Fjola with a Power Word Shield, that's a combined 4 mana, 3/6 with Divine Shield and Battlecry, draw a card. Or Eydis, a 4 mana, 3/6 with Battlecry, deal 3 damage to a random enemy, and draw a card. So busted good. But, yeah, there's that, and then I think Eydis specifically in something like Mech Mage, which is already getting a little bit of help, debatably, from Clockwork Knight. Eydis and a bunch of spare parts is just like a second Archmage Antonidas for Mech Mage. It's just like, let's drop all these spare parts at once, and let's go ahead and just blast everything. So, I think Eydis might actually need a nerf, just because of that synergy. That's just so good. So, yeah. I'm looking at Eydis and I'm thinking Eydis is going to be busted as heck in Mech Mage. I think Fjola is going to be the better of the two in Priest, That remains to be seen. Just because Eydis could always miss and go face when you want her to gain you that extra value and hit minions. But, they've each got their spot, and they might be useful in Paladin. Warlock, not really. Rogue, not really. Warrior, not really. Shaman, no. You could, like, you know, maybe Rockbiter, but that's not enough. Yeah. I also want to see what this new priest spell is. Maybe we'll see the return of Greater Heal. But, long and short of it is, these two are, I'm going to say, just become staple 3-drops in Priest. They might even bring Priest back to being Tier 1, which would be just a novel thing. I don't think Priest has ever truly been a Tier 1 class since its release. Back in, like, Alpha, when we still had Greater Heal, which was 2 mana, restore 2 health, or if you had Aconite, deal 2 damage for each card in your hand. So, yeah, I really like these two. But I am so scared of the revival of Mech Mage right now. Again, just because Eydis and... Honestly, Eydis might just ace out Clockwork Knight. Is that what he's called? Clockwork Knight? I think I got that right. Yes, he is. Okay. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Mech Mage is kind of coming back. And I think Priest might actually come back. Where would I put Eydis and Fjola? Well, let's see. I've been working on that Velen combo deck, right? That does run Velen's Chosen, and it does run Power Word Shield. It also runs Smites, although that's a little PogChamp to be using on your own creatures. But those could easily replace Blackwing Technician, even. They're stronger than that is. Like, Fjola can... Oh my god, I just thought of that. Fjola, target with 1 spell, even if it's like, you know, the Taunt Spare Part. Fjola trades with the first body of a Shredder without taking any damage, and Eydis has the exact same potential if you get lucky. Oh my god. Maybe Shredder's not even good anymore? No. No, Shredder's still good. Shredder's still good. These two do not make Shredder obsolete. The thing is, they just make Shredder much easier to deal with for Priest and Mage. So, there's that. But all the other classes should still have a relatively difficult time dealing with Shredder, so there you go. It's just so good. That is just so good. Okay, well, those are my thoughts. These two are just staples. I can't imagine that they would not be played and constructed. Again, Eydis, strictly better than Flamewaker. And while you can only have one of her, still strictly better. Fjola, strictly better than Dark Cultist. Possibly strictly better than, well, not strictly better than Shredder. I can't say that. You need a spell to target the minion, but I can easily say Eydis is strictly better than Flamewaker in the decks it will be played in, because Flamewaker's a mage-only card, and mage will still be able to use spells to trigger Eydis. Even for targeting. Just run more spare parts. You're fine. So, I don't know. I'm hyped now. Because this could be a revival for Priest. Actually, you know what? I'm going to say this. The card review bit is done here. But here's what I'm going to do for those of you who are interested, because again, I am largely a Priest player. Is the second that... Really? Okay. Well, I've got to finish waiting for Hearthstone to update. It'll take all of 2 seconds. But what I'll do is I'll see where Eydis and Fjola could fit into kind of a... Actually, I don't even have to wait for that. Here's what we'll do. I'll go over to my decks, and I hit Legend in Season 16 with this Japanese Priest remake. What cards could I use in this deck just to kind of add in Eydis and Fjola? I mean, they are 3-drops, and the 3-drop slot in this deck is already hard pressed. So a Dark Cultist could go pretty easily. And I'm not sure I'd want to drop Gilblin. Gilblin is really strong against Patron. But at the same time, the strength of Gilblin is that while he is a stealthed spell damage minion, he's a 2-drop that can potentially trade with others, but doesn't get hurt by Patron because of his stealth when he's played. On the other hand, Eydis and Fjola both have 3 attack, so they're not a problem for dealing with Patron Warrior. Oh, and Eydis deals 3 damage! So she doesn't even struggle against patrons. She literally will just ping off Oh my god! So you could drop Dark Cultist for Fjola, easily. And then what do we drop for Eydis? I don't want to drop Pyro, because that's AoE clear. Don't want to drop Black Knight or Toshli. Toshli's got ridiculous synergy anyway. Thought Steal. I could drop like a Thought Steal. That makes a very one-of heavy deck. Maybe just drop both Thought Steals and put in like a Light of the Naru and Eydis. That could work. Because, I mean, you're not going to Thought Steal very many targeting spells from an opponent's deck. So maybe Light of the Naru is just going to be that good, because it's good anti-aggro. It can target Eydis and Fjola in control matchups. I think so far that those are the modifications I would be making to a priest deck such as this one. If we were to make an American control priest, that'll be a Theorycraft video, so I'm not going to bother with that in this video, but yeah. In like a Japanese build, I think that's what the changes would be so far. So, thank you guys for watching. Those have just been kind of my thoughts on the new cards. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any disagreements with my statements about cards, feel free to post them in the comment section. Just please no rage. I don't want to respond to an angry comment with no sort of backing or anything. And if you have any suggestions to improve video quality, hey, I'm always open to those too. Even after a year of doing YouTube videos, there's always ways to improve. Although getting a better internet is not one of them. I've got the best internet I can get here. So, waiting for them to run fiber optic lines still. Oh well. But thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.